So I think really, as you say, the important thing, I'm saving for retirement. Retirement is the time at which my salary no longer gets paid, and I need to make sure that I can continue to get an income each month to fund my expenses. And how much money I've got is only one measure of my success. But really what's more important is, if I've got that money, how much income can I generate off it? And based on what's happening with interest rates, with longevity and how long people are living, with expected returns, will really have a big impact on how much money I can actually draw or earn, at least, off a particular amount of capital. And so really what we need to focus on when doing a financial plan and a retirement savings goal is to say, how much money am I going to need in retirement, and how do I make sure that I get that as a monthly income? The capital that I've got is almost inconsequential to that because, as I say, depending on the different market conditions, the capital needed to generate that income will differ, and the focus needs to be on the income. So if you're talking about the income that the client's going to need in retirement, really that's, as you say, it's difficult to get that exact. But you need to look and saying, well, what are my current expenses? What do I spend at the moment? How do I expect that to change when I get to retirement? So will I still have a bond? Will I still need to pay school fees for my children? Or maybe by then I'll be paying school fees for my grandchildren. Take inflation into account, look at all of those things and get to really what is going to be a best guess of what your expenses might be. Now, you're absolutely right to say that many things change. And my personal circumstances could change. The wealth that I've got could change over time. And that's why a financial plan isn't something that you do once, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years before retirement and forget about until the day you retire. You need to continue to review it with your financial advisor. Make sure that the objectives have remained unchanged. Make sure that your circumstances are still the same as they were last year. See what's happened to markets. Are you still on track? Are things going well? Do you need to change the portfolio you invested in? Do you need to make additional contributions? Because the more you do that planning in advance, the greater the likelihood that you can actually reach your end objective. Far too many people actually hope that they're going to be all right, and are one of the 5 out of 6 South Africans who actually don't have enough money to be able to sustain their retirement. So I think you're right. At the moment, we do have a lot of risk locally in terms of, what's going to happen with the ANC elective conference and who might the next president be. But we've got political risk globally as well, with Brexit in the UK, Trump doing some really interesting things in the US. And I think the important thing is that it's not the first time in South Africa or globally that we've had political uncertainty. We know that markets are volatile, that we've experienced uncertainty before, and we'll certainly experience uncertainty again into the future. I think the important thing that people mustn't do is panic. And so the right answer isn't, well, let me move all my money to cash because that's going to protect me, or let me move all my money outside of South Africa because that's going to protect me against a falling currency. Really the important thing is to say, well, what is the correct asset allocation for my particular circumstances? And that differs for everybody. Again, we heard that in some of the earlier sessions today. If I'm planning to move overseas, if I'm planning to educate children overseas, maybe I need a higher allocation to offshore assets than somebody who isn't planning to do those things. But what we do know is that moving all my money into cash is not the correct long-term solution. That generally what people who panic do is that they move their money to cash and then they don't move it out back into the market early enough. And also what they do is that they move it into cash after we've experienced the downfall or the downward movement, at least, in equity markets. So I think what really is important is to come up with a retirement plan or an investment plan, get the asset allocation right and stick to that. And the role that your financial advisor can play is really just to make sure that you are disciplined in that and that you do stick to that goal, because very often we're our own worst enemies. And while we may know what the right and wrong thing to do is we often do the wrong things. And an advisor can help make sure that we do stick to that plan regardless of what's happening in the political environment.